Lena's life changed forever the day she gave birth to twins with dark skin. Her husband Mark stared in disbelief. He felt betrayed, convinced she had been unfaithful. Without listening to a word from her, he kicked her out, leaving nothing but her suitcase and two newborns. In that single moment, her world shattered. In the years that followed, Lena faced many hardships, but she didn't know that life still had more twists waiting for her. It began on an ordinary morning in the hospital. The hallway was quiet until a commotion rose outside. Mark had parked his car across the entrance, dragging suitcases aggressively from the trunk while arguing with security. When they tried to stop him, he shoved past and stormed toward Lena's room. He burst through the door and threw the suitcases on the floor. The nurses were stunned by what just happened. The newborns were crying loudly but could not care any less. Guards came by following him. As they were retraining him, he shouted at her, accusing her of cheating on with his colleague, who was black. He accused her of trying to pass another man's children as his. Both he and Lena were a white couple, and his colleagues often visited and raised doubts in his mind. He declared their marriage was over and asked her to go with the man she slept with. He didn't want anything to do with her. Lena was still recovering, laid low in her bed. She couldn't just talk. She felt devastated. She couldn't believe how he could so easily give up and leave without hearing her side of the story. Mark had been outside pacing the hallway the entire time, but just as he heard the baby cry, he went in to see two dark-skinned newborns. He didn't say anything, but his eyes, they said it all. He glared at Lena just before he left the room. She knew something was off, but not exactly. She thought they had time to talk this out once she recovered. But she found herself abandoned in that lonely labor ward with no one to seek comfort from. Days passed, no calls from him, no text messages. She tried endlessly but couldn't reach out. In her heart, she knew she had been faithful to him. It was unheard of for two white couples to give birth to black twins, but that didn't mean she had slept with his colleague. But now there was no way to explain that to him. In her desperation, she called her grandmother, Agnes, who took her side without a single cell of hesitation. Agnes had never imagined such a joyful moment would be the cause of ruin for a happy marriage. However, she believed time would shed light on the truth. He helped her pack all her belongings, paid the discharge amount. They drove off to a countryside where Agnes lived alone. Grandma was living off of her life savings. Life was sailing just above the water for her solo life. Despite everything, Agnes took really good care of the mother and newborns. Lena was shattered. She was healing physically, but the emotional scars were too deep. She hoped if one day she would uncover the truth, he would take her back. Each day passed waiting for his call. And just as she hoped time would soften Mark's anger, her world shattered again. She received an email from a friend that notified the house had been sold off. Mark took all the cash with him and disappeared. She had been the one to pay off the mortgages, but unfortunately the house was under his name. But they had promised to put her in the alimony as well. But those were just words. This was not just abandonment. He was set to ruin her. First he kicked her out, then stole her peace, and now her only hope of backup. Lena was left to pick up all her broken pieces. Even with no money, she would not let herself fall apart. She sold her wedding ring and saved enough to start over. Her grandmother helped her gather what they needed for a small home. She took a job at a nearby restaurant, working long shifts so her children would have what they needed. While she worked, her grandmother cared for the twins. The hours were long and her body often ached, but she kept going. People would often pass on comments on her, talk about hospital rumors, but none of it broke her spirit. The twins grew strong and healthy until the twins turned 5. Strange notes began to appear, each one carrying crude drawings and threats. They called her a cheater and warned that worse was coming. At first, only a few notes appeared, but soon they came in greater numbers. Agnes and Lena grew more and more afraid. Lena was certain Mark was behind it, yet there was no way to reach him. Fearing for the children, she went to the police, but the threats kept coming from afar, years after he had left. To protect her home, Lena installed security cameras and carried on with her days as if nothing was wrong. She focused on an upcoming promotion, careful not to alarm the twins. A few days later, she aced the interview and earned the new position. The raise meant a better life, more room in the budget, and better schooling for the children. Just when things felt steady, the fear returned. One evening, her youngest handed her a small notebook, saying an uncle had asked him to give it to her. Her hands shook as she opened it. On the first page, in rough letters, were the words, "No matter where you go, I will find you." Lena went back to the police, but once again, Mark could not be traced. Fear lingered in the back of Lena's mind, a presence she could never fully forget. She knew what had to be done. To protect her children, she needed to leave and put distance between them and Mark. The price was high. She had to give up the promotion she had fought for. Walking away from it was painful, but keeping her children safe mattered more. Telling the twins was harder than she expected. They were not ready to leave their school or their friends. Still, they packed their few belongings and moved to a new city. Starting over felt heavy, but Lena found work and kept going. Bit by bit, they built a life they could call their own. In time, the nights grew quiet. The fear faded. Lena began to heal. Years passed and the twins turned 10. The school held a Parents' Day ceremony and Lena sat in the front row, proud as she watched her children perform on stage. The hall was filled with music. For a moment, life felt steady and whole. Then the doors at the back opened and Mark stepped inside. He looked worn down, his shoulders low, his face marked by years of hard living. He moved closer, words spilling out apologies, requests for forgiveness, a plea to be part of their lives again. Lena froze, unsure if what she was hearing was real. After leaving her, he had traced his family roots and discovered Black ancestry he never knew existed. The twins were his. But the shame of having Black babies as white couple, he couldn't process it. The shame ate him away. He had taken the money, went off with another woman only for her to leave him once the money ran dry. In desperation, he thought of blackmailing Lena for money, but seeing Lena and the children now opened something in him. He stood there, pleading for another chance. Seeing him, Lena felt the old anger stir, the memory of being left alone when she needed help the most, the years of threats and the damage he had caused. Forgiveness might be possible in time, but trust was gone. Letting him back into her life was not something she could allow. Mark turned and walked away. The weight she had carried for years seemed to lift, and for the first time in a long while, she felt she could breathe. Her mind was crystal clear. Her only focus was her children, their safety, and their happiness. The deeper truth about their father could wait until they were old enough to understand. She had built a steady life from the pieces he left behind, and now their future was hers to protect. Check out our other stories. You might like them. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the strength we carry and the light we find, even in the darkest places. What would you have done in Lena's shoes? Could you ever forgive someone like Mark? Does true love mean unconditional forgiveness, or are there boundaries that protect our dignity? Tell us in the comments below. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep listening.